Imagine being thousands of feet in the air, and suddenly everything goes wrong. The plane starts to plummet, and your heart races as you realize this might be the end. This is what it feels like to be in a flight that is about to crash. Imagine the emotions the passengers of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 and United Airlines Flight 232 during their final moments before quitting this earth without goodbye to their loved ones they had hoped to hug in a few hours. The aircraft, once a symbol of human ingenuity, had surrendered to the brutal forces of gravity. It shuddered violently. Passengers lurched, their faces contorted in a mixture of confusion and terror. Just like in the tragic case of Air France Flight 447, a deafening roar had ripped through the cabin, drowning out the screams that erupted around them. Similar to the harrowing moments of United Airlines Flight 232, the sickening feeling of weightlessness had descended, a prelude to the inevitable plunge. Much like the final moments of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, the world outside the windows, once a distant tapestry of clouds and sunlight, had spun wildly, a terrifying kaleidoscope of chaos. As the plane continued its descent, the passengers were frozen in disbelief, unable to comprehend the reality of their situation. Time had distorted, stretching into an eternity within those first few horrifying seconds. Minds had struggled to grasp the reality of the situation. This couldn't have been happening. It had felt like a nightmare, a cruel trick of the imagination. Denial, a powerful defense mechanism, had kicked in. Passengers had clung to their loved ones, their eyes wide with disbelief, mouths agape, unable to articulate the terror that had clawed at their throats. The world outside the windows had continued its dizzying descent. Just like in the tragic crashes of Flight 370 and Flight 447, the disbelief had been overwhelming. With every passing second, the urgency grew, and the passengers began to claw at the walls of fate, seeking any means of survival. Disbelief shattered under the weight of the relentless descent. The once serene skies had turned into a battleground of survival, where every second felt like an eternity. The pilots, with beads of sweat trickling down their foreheads, fought against the controls, their faces etched with determination and fear. This scene echoed the tragic moments of Air France Flight 447, where pilots struggled in vain to regain control. Panic, raw and primal, flooded the cabin, replacing the initial shock. The passengers, gripped by an overwhelming sense of dread, clung to their seats, their knuckles white with tension. Screams and cries filled the air, a cacophony of terror that echoed through the confined space. Similar scenes unfolded during the crash of United Airlines Flight 232, where passengers faced the grim reality of their situation. Hearts pounded like drums in their chests, each beat a frantic countdown. The rhythm of life itself seemed to be in a race against time, a desperate attempt to hold on to the fragile thread of existence. This mirrored the harrowing moments experienced by those on board Japan Airlines Flight 123. Lungs struggled for air that seemed to have vanished. The deployment of oxygen masks brought a fleeting sense of relief, but the fear remained, a constant companion in the face of impending doom. Passengers on Qantas Flight 32 felt a similar fleeting relief when oxygen masks deployed during their emergency. The instinct to survive, hardwired into the very essence of their being, surged to the forefront. Faces once filled with fear now showed a steely resolve, a determination to fight against the odds. This resolve was evident in the passengers of U.S. Airways Flight 1549, who braced for impact on the Hudson River, a scramble for life vests, hands shaking but resolute as they prepared for the worst. Each movement was a testament to the will to live, a defiance against the cruel hand of fate. This scene was reminiscent of the frantic preparations on Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961, a desperate search for exits, eyes scanning the chaos for any sign of escape. The urgency in their actions was palpable, a race against time to find a way out of the nightmare. This urgency was mirrored in the frantic moments of Asiana Airlines Flight 214, a clamor for any semblance of control in a world spiraling into oblivion. Amidst the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope, a belief that somehow they could claw their way back from the brink. This hope was seen in the passengers of British Airways Flight 38, who held on to the belief that they could survive the ordeal. How can one get the best glimmers of hope in the darkest moments? Amidst the chaos, glimmers of hope flickered. Prayers were whispered, desperate pleas sent into the void, hoping for a miracle. The cabin was filled with a cacophony of emotions, each passenger grappling with their own fears and anxieties. Silent bargains were made with higher powers, promises of change and vows of gratitude if only they could be spared. The whispers grew louder, a collective murmur of hope and desperation. A mother's reassuring touch to her child, a gesture of love and protection in the face of uncertainty. Her hand, steady and warm, was a beacon of comfort amidst the turmoil. A stranger's hand clasped in solidarity, a simple act that bridged the gap between unfamiliar souls. In that moment, they were no longer strangers but fellow travelers sharing the same fate. These fleeting moments, tiny sparks of humanity, offered a fragile solace in the face of impending doom. Compassionate gestures, a shared look of understanding, and the unspoken bond of shared fear. Yet even as they clung to hope, the relentless pull of gravity reminded them of their dire predicament. The turbulence outside mirrored the turmoil within, a constant reminder of the peril they faced. The ground, once a distant concern, now loomed ever closer. The reality of their situation was inescapable, and the fleeting glimmers of hope were all they had to hold on to as they braced for impact. In real-life tragedies like United Airlines Flight 232 and Air France Flight 447, passengers experienced similar moments of hope and despair. These stories remind us of the human spirit's resilience, even in the face of overwhelming odds. As the end drew near, a calm serenity washed over the passengers, a melancholic acceptance of their fate. And then, a strange calm descended. The struggle for control, the desperate pleas, the raw panic, all seemed to fade. It was as if the very air inside the cabin had shifted, bringing with it a profound stillness that enveloped everyone on board. A sense of acceptance washed over them, a collective understanding that their fate was sealed. The frantic energy that had once filled the space was replaced by a quiet resignation. It was a surrender to the inevitable, a letting go of all the fears and anxieties that had gripped their hearts just moments before. The world outside the windows, once a source of dread and uncertainty, now appeared as a blur of colors and motion, holding no more terror. In those final moments, the beauty of the sky seemed almost surreal, a stark contrast to the chaos within. As the ground rushed to meet them, some closed their eyes, finding a strange peace in the darkness behind their eyelids. It was a moment of introspection, a final chance to reflect on their lives. Others held on to their loved ones, their grip tightening as if to draw strength from each other in their last moments. The bonds of love and connection felt stronger than ever. It was a final act of love and defiance, a testament to the human spirit's resilience even in the face of certain doom. In that serene yet harrowing moment, they found a way to say goodbye. Similar scenes were recounted by survivors of the Hudson River landing in 2009, where Captain Sully's calm demeanor helped passengers find a semblance of peace. In the tragic crash of Air France Flight 447 in 2009, the final moments were marked by a haunting calm as the plane descended into the Atlantic.